I can give more if I fill my cup, if I nurture myself and take care of myself, right? When you think about an airplane, and that mass drops, they always tell you to put yours on first before you tend to other people. And if we can apply that same approach to everything that we do in our lives, then we're going to be able to set those boundaries.
Welcome to the Run Lift Mom podcast, where we're talking about running, lifting, and momming, not necessarily in that order. Today, we're going to be talking about momming and everything related to being a high-achieving woman. I have got Rida Bakhsh, a certified life coach, mentor, and speaker with me. Now, through her journey, Rida has faced challenges and setbacks, but through personal development and mindset work, she was able to change her trajectory. She's going to share a little bit about her personal story, as well as give us some tactical advice that is meant to empower and inspire. I love this conversation with Rida. She runs her own heart-centered business, helping women define who they are so they can uncover who they're destined to be. That's awesome, huh? It's got a ring to it, but it is nice and true and genuine. Without further ado, my friend Rida Bakhsh. All right. Welcome, Coach Rida, to the Run Lift Mom podcast. How are you doing today?
Oh, Susie, I am fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
I am really excited to have you because you are a coach that focuses on empowerment. And I've got to ask, how did you get into this?
Oh, well, thank you so much for asking. Yeah, so I wasn't always this way. I am actually on a mission to help the woman that I was. And what that really means, Susie, is that I came from a place where I was full of this victim mentality, where I always expected negative things to happen. And after years and years of feeling like I was defined by my circumstances and my physical and emotional scars, I realized that something had to change. And in doing so, I was able to really find myself and decide that there was something better out there for me. And through years of personal development and my own journey, I was able to see that I actually had a really good natural ability to help others in this area. So then I recently got certified and decided to start my own practice so that I can help women basically get the shortcut to becoming the best version of themselves.
I love this. And Rita, I've got to think there is someone listening right now that relates to the victim thing, right? We've got
Right.
a lot of, I know my listeners, have personal relationships with many of them. And I know that there are a lot of moms out there. And for me, especially, I'm a stay-at-home mom. And so it's really easy to get into victim mode.
For sure. And honestly, this year has been so heavy, right? With COVID and the pandemic, and our lines are getting blurred because we used to leave the house, for some of us, and there was some type of balance and routine. And now, like I said, the lines have become really blurred. There's less time for self-care. There's just more of us giving from an empty cup. And then once we start to lose that balance, we start to lose our sense of self. And it's very easy. It's a slippery slope to become, to fall victim and to fall into a state of negativity, not even realizing it.
Now, we are going to get into some tactical tips that listeners can use, but I'd love it if you would open up about what that looked like for you. Obviously now you're coaching others to get out of that mindset and be more productive in their lives. But do you mind sharing like a personal story about, how this worked for you?
Yes, I would love to. Actually, so when we talk specifically about victim mentality, right? For me, especially back in, 20 years ago, I started to always feel like something bad was going to happen. I don't know if any of your listeners can relate to this, but, as soon as I would be happy or enjoying life, I was just always waiting for that other shoe to drop. I felt like something negative was bound to happen. And to some degree, subconsciously, I think that I wasn't worthy of happiness, or I felt like it would be taken away at any given time. And I think that a lot of this stems from your imprint period, your upbringing. And if you're familiar with your imprint period, that happens between ages 3 to 11. And that's when children are most impressionable. And depending on whatever your experiences are or the way that you were raised, you tend to believe certain things. And for me, I started to believe that, I couldn't be as successful as I wanted to. I couldn't have the big house. I couldn't fall in love. I wouldn't have someone who loves me for who I am. And this is what we all tie under this self-limiting bubble or umbrella, if you will. Like a lot of times we think that we can't accomplish things because we have been conditioned to believe this. And unfortunately, we don't tap into our true potential because we allow these beliefs to hold us back. And I fell victim to that for many, many years.
Wow. Wow. And so now, of course, you help others get
Mm-hmm.
out of that mindset trap as well. I've got to think there are two types of people listening, right? One, they're like, yeah, girl, I know, I've been there. I'm owning powerful thoughts for
Right.
myself. And then maybe somebody else is like, yikes, that sounds really familiar. Perhaps I'm doing that. Um, for the
Mm-hmm.
woman who maybe is in control of her thoughts, she doesn't have those self-limiting beliefs, how could she support the other type of woman who maybe is walking through this a bit?
So one of the key things, I think no matter where you are in your life, because we all, get wrapped up in our thoughts sometimes, right? It definitely takes some practice to become very self-aware. Sometimes we think we're self-aware, but we're really not. I don't know if you've ever felt like this yourself, Susie, but sometimes you feel yourself being tense and you just react instead of necessarily being responsive, like taking that pause and let me think about my actions before I react. And a lot of women, this happens to us. And so one thing that I would offer is that we have to learn how to reframe. And I think this is a very healthy way for people who can relate to anything that I'm saying that they can easily put into practice. Like I said before, limiting beliefs, that really keeps us from our true potential, right? We go through a lot of I'm not good enough thoughts, or I can't do this thoughts. So what we want to do is take those thoughts and reframe them. And if you're familiar with positive affirmations, this is a very easy, simple way of doing it, where you would take that negative thought essentially and just reframe it to I am. I am confident. I am worthy. I am deserving of love. Whatever your negative thought is, reframe it. And like I said, even to the most positive listener, sometimes we get in that default mode and we get wrapped and caught up in life. So it could serve as a reminder for some, but this could also be a really healthy tool to put in place for the listeners that can really relate to that victim mentality and the self-limiting beliefs.
I love this. And I also love that, we're talking about modeling healthy behaviors this season of
Mm-hmm.
Run Lift Mom. And so I love that it gives us something to wrap our heads around if we're trying to maybe help one of our peers. Can you talk to me a little bit, Rita, about empowering our friends or our peers, especially like other women in our lives?
Well, it's definitely important that we have a good support system and empowerment tools, right? One of the things I just recently did was start an empowerment group, a private group on Facebook, just for specifically the question you asked, right? Because I feel like so many times as women, we are natural nurturers and we want to give, give, give. And I mentioned earlier where we tend to give from an empty cup. There's a lot of times that we essentially don't realize that giving to ourselves, that is not selfish. And I have so many clients and so many women, Susie, that I talk to that they cannot turn it off. They want to give, and yes, that feels good, but they never take time to look at themselves. They never take time for that introspection and asking themselves, what fills my cup? And so I encourage you, if you have other women in your life, your friends, your siblings, your mothers, anyone that you notice that they're not really focusing on themselves, and maybe they're running on fumes or they're barely keeping their head above water. And that was me at lots of stages in my life. If you notice this, reach out to them, spend time, allow each other to talk about what you're feeling and to be honest with it. Sometimes we don't want to be honest because we're afraid of the judgment. But when you feel safe in your circle that you can truly be honest about what you're feeling, you can allow other people to uplift you and empower you to be better.
Oh, I love what you said there about being honest, because what you've done, for example, with that private Facebook group,
Mm-hmm.
it creates a community where it's a safe space and it's okay to be honest, and we can all be doing that for our peers.
Yes. Yes. And
There's
one of
so much value in a safe space.
Oh, so true. And honestly, some of the feedback that I've received from creating this community is that, and this was my hope, is that other women who don't know each other, right? They can see that there are so many parallels and there are so many, things that they have in common, even though they live two completely separate lives on two completely different parts of the world. But as women, we tend to feel the same way. And collectively, we work together on that. And just, like I said, offering that support where you can actually take your mask off and be who you really are without fear of
Yes.
judgment.
So we can, of course, to model positive and healthy behavior for our peers. Of course, we can
Mm-hmm.
be a friend and be honest. Something that I wish I saw more of would be other women saying no. I find that sometimes we run on fumes because we'll put too much on our plate. Do you ever see that? And do you have any advice for us as far as how to say no to things?
Oh my goodness. Yes, that's a huge one. And thank you for bringing that up. And where that stems from, it goes back to balance, right? But it's because we don't set boundaries in place. And the biggest thing that we do is we don't set boundaries with ourselves. It's one thing to set it with other people, but we don't set boundaries with ourselves. So this is where we have to get into we get into a mindset shift of I can give more if I fill my cup, if I nurture myself and take care of myself, right? When you think about an airplane and that mass drops, they always tell you to put yours on first before you tend to other people. And if we can apply that same approach to everything that we do in our lives, then we're going to be able to set those boundaries. So a lot of times when people are expecting of you and you've always done it, it's very hard to say no. So how do we say no? We compromise. Maybe somebody needs you to do something today that you didn't have planned, and normally out of your giving nature you want to do it. Maybe that doesn't work for you today. So you have to honor yourself and say, I can't do this today. I would really love to help you out. Would another day be okay? Or maybe I only have an hour to help you and I don't have, 3 hours. There has to be some balance and some compromise. But once you start to set that ball in motion, people will adjust and they will honestly respect you for honoring your time and your energy.
I love that suggestion, and I have to share with you, Rita, that that is what running is for me. It is a
Really?
boundary, and so I fill my cup with running, but also
Mm.
there's that boundary with my family and friends. People that know me personally are laughing right now because, yeah, I get up in the morning and I've got a couple hours in my garage gym, oftentimes on the treadmill, but that is sacred time to me. My family knows it. My family knows it. My friends know it. It's not time that they would intrude on because I
Mhm.
have set that boundary. And it's the first thing I do, and it is for me. And listeners, life will happen. But if you've
Yes.
done something great for yourself first, you don't have to run. Maybe you're reading a book or you're praying or meditating. If you've done something for you, it
Mhm.
really goes a long way.
I completely agree. And I love that you shared that story. And like you said, your family, your friends, they know that that is your sacred time because you've set that boundary. But there's so many women who they don't honor that for themselves. So how can they expect anyone else to honor it if they don't? So I think that that's a beautiful example. And whatever it is, like you said, whatever fills your cup, just set some time aside. I'm sure you feel really energized and ready to take on your day after you have your time for yourself, right?
Well, like you said with the oxygen mask thing, that is
Mm.
me being able to, it's the oxygen mask for me, my run is, and then I'm able to be a better mother. And listener, hear Rita when she says, you just have to start setting those boundaries. So it's uncomfortable at first to be like, oh, I'm sorry, I've got a workout scheduled and I have to honor that for myself. It's awkward to say that at first, but when you do it enough times, people will begin to respect that boundary.
Yes, so very true. You said that perfectly.
I love the tips that you're giving us. So, of course, we can find you in your Facebook group. So, listener, you can, depending on the player that you're in, you're either going to click details or swipe up. You're going to get all of Rita's great stuff, including the link to that Facebook group. Where else can they find you?
Well, as we started the conversation, I talked about I wanted to help the woman that I was. So my website is actually iwasthatgirl.com. So I would love to connect either on my website or I am on Facebook and social media. So I'm sure you'll have the links, but I would love to have a conversation with any of your listeners, because what I am here to do is really to help women see that they can become their better selves and without the guilt. You deserve more and you are worthy.
Thank you so much, Rita. I don't know of a better place to leave off.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Susie. This was wonderful.
My legs are tired. Bring me coffee. You guys, this is just one of the many shirts that I love from Sarah Marie Design Studio. They have running-inspired gear, gifts, coffee mug, jewelry, you name it, they've got it. It's awesome. And if you use Run Lift Mom at checkout, you will save 10%. Go to sarahmariedesignstudio.com and enter in Run Lift Mom at checkout for 10% off. Thank you for listening to Run Lift Mom. I am so excited to offer a special discount to listeners of this show, and you're not going to find it anywhere else, so commit it to memory. Use the discount code RLM at checkout on my Alouette site to receive 15% off your order. You're going to go to alouette.com/runliftmom, and you can find that linked in the show notes. But remember, because this isn't in the show notes, the code RLM is only for people hearing my voice right now. You're going to save 15% off your order using RLM. And yes, this can be stacked with other gift with purchase or BOGO discounts. It's time for the Alouette product of the week, and this week it is the City Detox Environmental Defense Powder Cleanser. Yeah, you heard me right. This is a powder cleanser. So you guys, you're just going to sprinkle this into your hand. You can mix it with water. The amount of water you use is going to depend on the consistency that you want. You can also mix it in with a foam or a gel-based cleanser. What's going to happen here is it's going to cleanse away pollutants, makeup, and skin impurities. It's an enzyme cleanser, and it is detoxifying. It's fantastic. If you wash your face in the morning and the evening, if you can only pick one, I recommend the evening for your City Detox. It's great to travel with because, it's powder. So throw it in your purse, your mommy backpack, or your gym bag. That is the City Detox Environmental Defense Powder Cleanser. Thank you so much for listening to the Run Lift Mom podcast. I want to let you know that you can swipe up in the podcast player that you're in to see the show notes. That's going to take you to my website, and you're going to get a deep dive on today's show. Cool, huh? You can think of it as a blog post that complements what was covered today with all of the links and resources discussed. Don't forget to check out the podcast partners as well with some really great offers for you. And until I get into your earpiece again, remember, for while bodily training is of some value, godliness is of value in every way, as it holds promise for the present life and also for the life to come. That's from 1 Timothy 4:8, and this has been the Run Lift Mom podcast.